And so Felix versus Barnes, for the uninitiated, there was a police officer who was at a toll, or I think he pulled over somebody and they had toll violations or something like that. And the driver was driving his girlfriend's car, something, I forget the exact details. But effectively, the driver decides to take off. And so the officer jumps onto the skid on the side of the vehicle. Okay. This is over tolls and a traffic stop. That's the level of crime that we have. Okay. But because the cop played G.I. Joe and jumped onto the side of the vehicle, the cop then said that he was an imminent threat or death or great bodily harm because this guy was speeding off with him attached to the vehicle. So he pulled his gun and shot the driver and killed the driver. Okay. And so this is the case law that I think is kind of arguing for officer cause jeopardy. This went up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court found a part of the case that they didn't like. So they kicked it back for review by the lower court. It hasn't been decided. But what advocates of officer cause jeopardy are saying is that there are situations that are obvious. For instance, this shooting of Renee Good, and also this shooting of Felix versus Barnes. I'm assuming it's Felix, but I don't know. And what is happening is that the law enforcement officer might be trying to perform their lawful duties by doing a detention or an investigation or an interrogation, but through reckless disregard for human life, they're engaging in tactics that are effectively putting themselves into scenarios in which deadly force is justified, and then using deadly force regardless of the context of the underlying crime. And so what they're arguing is that it should be incumbent upon law enforcement officers to do a calculation of what is the law enforcement purpose served? Is the lethal force or deadly force or use of force that I'm engaged in actually serving a legitimate purpose? And am I being reckless in order to cause a use of force scenario that is unnecessary to serve my lawful duties? And so that has not been decided, but this is kind of like it's a new legal analysis that I would say progressive and liberal jurists and lawyers are looking at because of extreme examples like Renee Good.
I mean, under this framework, you can think of a lot of models where something like this could apply, where maybe a criminal that's wanted runs a stop somewhere, tries to go into the distance, and then the officer, seeing the car going towards them, maybe it's going towards them, maybe it's going towards others, starts shooting at them. But there's a school bus behind them. Should they open fire? Or should they move out of the way? They choose to open fire, hit 7 kids, and you think of the scenario like that. Why didn't he just move out of the way? Could he have moved out of the way? Why? What law enforcement purpose did it serve to open fire into that vehicle? You can think of a lot of scenarios where, yeah, his life is a threat. Is that the only choice he had before him was to open fire, potentially endangering more people, or even.
But I think right there that kind of betrays the argumentation, though, because with law enforcement officers inherently, there's we have to agree on whether or not law enforcement is a necessary part of society. Okay, I think that there should be men and women who put on soft body armor and a pistol on their hip. They should walk around in society, and if somebody is breaking a law, they should detain them, incarcerate them, and put them in front of a judge or a jury to decide whether or not they committed a crime sufficient in order to serve a sentence or a civil penalty. I think that's just like a necessary operation of society. I think that there's bad people out there who do bad things, and they need to be held accountable by the long arm of the law. So